The girl didn't walk up to us like fans usually do, shy, polite, waiting for the perfect moment. No. She marched toward us through the crowd like someone with a mission. Her footsteps hit the pavement with a kind of stubborn confidence you only see in people who already know exactly what they want. A small backpack, messy hair tied in a loose knot, and eyes that burned with the kind of determination you don't usually see in a teenager. We were midway through tuning our violins, warming up for another classical street performance. The usual, a bit of Vivaldi, a touch of Paganini, a sprinkle of movie soundtracks for the tourists. The crowd around us had already settled into their calm weekend mood, families with kids, couples strolling, a few students recording clips for social media. Everything was normal, predictable, peaceful, until she stopped right in front of us. She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She didn't even hesitate. Instead, she leaned forward slightly and, with a voice full of fire, said, "Can you play a metal song?" "Not." "Can you try?" "Not." "Could you maybe?" "Not." "Do you know any?" No softness. No hesitation. Just a straight-up challenge. I actually froze with my bow in midair. My partner turned slowly toward her like he wasn't sure he heard correctly. "Metal? On the violin? Right here? Right now?" Inside my mind, I could hear the silent reaction of the crowd around us. "Metal? On violins? Are these guys serious?" People paused their conversations. A couple of tourists blinked in confusion. A kid holding an ice cream cone literally stopped mid-bite. Even pigeons seemed to freeze, like the entire universe had pressed pause for a moment. But the girl, she stood like a tiny general. We didn't even know her name, but she had the energy of someone who has forced entire classrooms, siblings, and probably even teachers to listen to whatever music she liked. Her hands were balled into tight fists, not out of anger but anticipation. She wanted this. She needed this. And something in her expression told me she wasn't asking for any ordinary metal track. She wanted the kind of sound that shakes your bones. The kind that makes your heart race. The kind that turns the world into a battlefield of energy and emotion. She took one small step closer and said again, slower this time, "I want to feel the ground shake." And that was all the motivation we needed. For a moment, I looked at my violin, this elegant wooden instrument built for delicate orchestras, soft symphonies, romantic melodies, and I could almost hear it whispering. "Metal? Are you insane?" But violins don't get to choose the genre. Musicians do. And if someone brings you this much passion, you respect it. The funny thing is, she wasn't even dressed like a stereotypical metal fan. No black shirt, no chains, no dark eyeliner. She looked like a normal schoolgirl who just happened to have molten lava running through her veins. The crowd leaned in. Phones came out. You could feel the air shift from casual curiosity to electric anticipation. A few whispers floated around. "Metal? Did she say metal? On violins? No way they can do that. Bro, this is gonna be wild. Record this, record this." We exchanged a glance, the kind that performers share when they know something unexpected is about to happen. A silent agreement, a decision without words. All right then. If she wanted metal, she was about to get metal. I tightened my bow hair. My partner plugged in the small street amp. The girl folded her arms, chin up, waiting like a queen expecting a private concert. The tension in the air didn't just rise, it thickened. You could almost hold it in your hands. A man sipping coffee stopped mid-sip. A group of college boys moved closer, excitement glowing on their faces. Even a toddler in a stroller stared with round eyes, sensing something big was coming. But the girl? She didn't move an inch. Her expression was completely unreadable, somewhere between excitement and absolute seriousness. The kind of seriousness that makes you think, if we get this wrong, she will judge us for life. We lifted our violins. The bow tips hovered above the strings. People held their breath. The girl leaned slightly forward, as if bracing for impact. And in that final half second before the first note, before the world around us flipped from calm to chaos, I realized something. This wasn't just her request. This wasn't just a performance. This was a challenge she had set for us, a personal test. One that could either transform this street into a massive outdoor concert, or leave us totally embarrassed. But there is something beautiful about moments like this. Something raw. Something real. The entire street felt like a spark hovering over an open fuel tank. One note. Just one note. That's all it would take to set everything on fire. So we looked at each other, nodded, and prepared for the first strike. The crowd leaned even closer. The girls' eyes widened with anticipation. The pavement almost seemed to vibrate before the music even began. And just as our bows touched the strings, cliffhanger. We raised our bows, and the crowd had absolutely no idea what was coming next. At first, the crowd genuinely thought we misunderstood her. Two violinists. Two wooden instruments. Two guys dressed like we were about to play something elegant, something soothing, something that belonged in a candlelit hall with stained glass windows. Metal? Here? On these instruments? People assumed she was joking, or worse, that she was just another kid trying to make a scene. You could see it on their faces, the polite half-smiles, the raised eyebrows, the tiny laughs bubbling up between strangers. But the girl? She didn't laugh once. She stood with a seriousness that made the street itself feel too small to contain her. A breeze passed through, ruffling her hair, but she didn't even flinch. Her eyes stayed locked on us like she was daring us to prove her wrong. Behind her, the street was alive with its usual weekend noise. Vendors shouting prices. Children whining for snacks. Cars humming in the distance. Tourists clicking pictures of everything, the buildings, the pigeons, even their own shadows. None of them expected what was about to happen. We tightened our grip on our violins. The girl tightened her grip on her backpack straps. And for a moment, the entire world shrank to just the three of us. Two musicians. And one girl with a fire in her eyes. I could feel people watching, but not believing. A man whispered, "Metal? They're not serious." Someone else chuckled. "They're probably going to play some dramatic classical thing and pretend it's metal." A teenager rolled his eyes. "They won't do the heavy parts." Their doubt hung in the air like fog. But that only pushed us harder. We turned away from the crowd and started prepping. Tightening bow hair. Adjusting shoulder rests. Plugging in small amps. Checking levels. Giving each other looks that said, "If we're doing this, we're doing it all the way." The girl leaned in closer, as if she didn't want to miss a single detail. "Are you actually going to do it?" she asked quietly. Not hopeful. Not scared. Just amazed. I smirked. "You asked for metal? We don't do metal halfway." For the first time, she cracked a tiny smile, one that vanished almost instantly as she pulled her serious expression back on, ready for war. People started recording. Phones angled upward like 1,000 little cameras waiting for a miracle, or a disaster. Still, they didn't believe us. Until we changed the tone. The warm-up ended. The casual mood died. The amps buzzed with a low growl, the kind that hinted at something monstrous. The girl's eyes widened. She knew. Everyone else? Not yet. My partner hit a quick, aggressive test note. It echoed across the street with a sharpness that sliced through the background noise. A few people flinched. A baby started crying. A dog turned its head like it sensed danger. "That didn't sound classical," someone murmured. "Good." I slid the bow across the strings, letting a distorted hum vibrate through the amp, a low, dirty, angry sound that violins weren't supposed to make. People finally started to understand. The atmosphere shifted. Conversations died out. The crowd thickened. The energy turned magnetic. Even the pigeons fled. The girl stepped even closer, whispering under her breath, "This is really happening." We locked eyes with her. And something strange happened. We felt her excitement more than the crowd's. Her heartbeat seemed louder than the city around us. Her anticipation became the fuel we never knew we were missing. She wasn't just another audience member. She was the reason the performance existed at all. We started tapping into the rhythm. Bows poised. Shoulders braced. Hands ready. I looked at my partner. He looked at me. We weren't just performing anymore. We were about to explode. But before the first big chord, before the chaos, before the madness, we did something small. Something subtle. We began with a clean, slow melody, soft enough to trick the crowd into thinking it was classical again. A calm before the storm. People relaxed. Someone even sighed in relief. Someone else whispered, "See? They won't actually play metal." But the girl's expression didn't change. She knew the truth. She sensed the tension hiding behind the gentle notes. She could feel the pressure building under the surface. She saw the fire in our fingers. Every note of that slow intro was a warning. A countdown disguised as music. 5, 4, 3. The melody deepened. 2. The amps growled. 1. The crowd leaned closer. But the girl? She braced herself. She adjusted her stance, tightened her fists, locked her knees, and whispered the final spark. "Do it." The street fell silent for half a breath. Then, we struck. Hard. Fast. Violent. A blast of sound slammed into the air like thunder ripping open the sky. The first metal chord wasn't just loud. It was seismic. People jumped. Someone dropped their coffee. A tourist screamed. A teenager yelled, "And away what?" And the girl. Her entire face lit up like she just watched her favorite universe come alive in front of her. She didn't move back. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She grinned. A wild, unstoppable, electric grin. The kind of grin that only happens when something unbelievable becomes real. And as we tore into the heavy riff, fast, sharp, powerful, the entire street understood one truth. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a stunt. This wasn't classical music pretending to be edgy. This was real metal. On violins. In the middle of a public street. Because one fearless girl asked for it. Cliffhanger. And when we shifted toward the breakdown, someone in the crowd shouted, "No way, they're actually doing that part!" The moment we struck the final chord of the breakdown, the air changed. Not in a small way. Not in a crowd cheering way. But in a deep, bone-level, universe-rewiring way. The kind of silence that follows a storm. The kind that makes everyone lean forward, not back. The kind that says, something even crazier is coming. I could feel it before the crowd knew it. Before my partner realized it. Before anyone could predict the madness that was about to unfold. We were standing right on the edge of the solo. The impossible solo. The one every metal fan recognizes instantly. The one musicians whisper about. The one that eats inexperienced performers alive. People in the crowd had heard rumors of violinists attempting this before. Most failed. Strings snapped. Bows broke. Amps died dramatic deaths. But today we had something different fueling us. The girl. She hadn't moved from the front. Her eyes were glowing. Her hands were shaking. Her smile was stretched so wide it looked like it hurt. She wasn't enjoying this. She was living this. We lifted our bows, and the tension became so thick it felt like the whole street was holding one collective breath. Then, we tore into the opening line of the solo. Fast. Sharp. Dangerous. It sliced through the air like a blade dipped in lightning. The crowd exploded. But the girl? She didn't scream. She didn't jump. She didn't even blink. She did something none of us expected. She stepped closer, raised her hands, and started air guitaring the entire solo perfectly, note for note. Not sloppy. Not chaotic. Not random. Perfectly. Every bend, every fast sweep, every impossible motion. She knew it all. Like she'd played this solo 1,000 times on an invisible stage only she could see. People around her backed up, not because she was in the way, but because she became the focal point of the performance. For a few impossible seconds, she looked less like a teenager and more like the lead guitarist of a stadium tour. The crowd went from cheering for us to cheering for her. A man whispered, "No way." A woman pressed a hand to her mouth. Someone filming shouted, "Wow, she knows every note." But she didn't hear them. She was somewhere else. Someplace where music wasn't just sound. It was identity. It was home. It was freedom. We kept playing, faster, harder, forcing our violins into territories they were never meant to survive. The strings vibrated so violently it felt like they might jump off the fingerboard. My fingers blurred. My bow tore through the air like a weapon on fire. The solo twisted and climbed and screamed into the sky. And the girl followed every note, matching us with invisible strings, invisible frets, invisible fire. Her hair whipped as she moved. Her backpack swung like she was at a rock concert. Her feet stomped in rhythm so powerfully that people around her felt the vibrations. She was no longer a kid requesting a metal song. She was the conductor, the front woman, the heartbeat of the entire moment. But halfway through the solo, something changed again. She stopped playing. Not because she was tired. Not because she lost the rhythm. Not because she forgot the notes. She stopped because she realized something huge. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. Her breathing hitched. She suddenly understood what was happening. Not a performance. Not a cover. Not a fun moment. But a memory. A once-in-a-lifetime, universe-shaking memory being carved into her soul. She put a hand over her chest, right where her heartbeat was pounding like a drum solo, and whispered, barely audible above the chaos, "This is the best day of my life." And those words, those 6 tiny, trembling words, slammed into me harder than any metal chord ever could. I felt the weight of them. The truth. The purity. The honesty. This wasn't just music for her. It was escape. It was joy. It was something she'd always wanted but never dared ask for. We pushed into the final, impossible run of the solo. A lightning-fast spiral of notes, so quick that even guitarists fear it. My fingers flew. My partner's bow blurred. The amp hummed with the strain. The solo skyrocketed into the air like fireworks exploding in slow motion. The girl threw her hands upward, as if releasing all the emotions inside her in one massive burst. The crowd felt it. They didn't just hear the music, they experienced it with their entire bodies. People screamed. People cried. People jumped. People held each other. It was chaos. But the good kind. The beautiful kind. The human kind. As we reached the final shrieking note of the solo, the world seemed to freeze around us. Everything stopped. The music. The crowd. The street. Even the girl. Her hands suspended in midair. Like she was trying to keep the moment alive. Just 1 second longer. Then, we hit the final note. A piercing, soaring scream of sound that tore into the sky. The girl wasn't ready. None of us were. When that note rang out, she didn't cheer. She didn't clap. She didn't shout. She stepped forward, leaned in close. And with a voice full of awe, adrenaline, and something almost sacred, whispered, "I didn't think it was possible, but you made violins sound like gods." Her words hit the crowd like thunder. And just like that, the entire street erupted again. Louder than before, louder than ever. The moment we slid into the breakdown, the world around us didn't just react, it erupted. It started with a single gasp somewhere in the crowd, sharp enough to slice through the rising sound. Then another. And another. Like a chain reaction of shock spreading across the entire street. Because this wasn't soft, elegant violin music anymore. This wasn't classical. This wasn't even a remix. This was metal, violent, raw, electric metal, screaming out of instruments that were never supposed to make noises like this. My bow crashed onto the G string with a gritty, rumbling growl. The notes churned out like thunder trapped inside wood. My partner matched it, unleashing a distorted chug so aggressive people in the front row actually stepped back as if a physical force had hit them. The girl who requested it. She didn't step back. She stepped forward. Her eyes were wide, wild, shining with a kind of excitement so pure it almost lit her face like fire. She threw her hands into the air and yelled louder than the music itself. "Yes! That's it! That's the breakdown!" Her voice cracked, but she didn't care. No one did. Because now the energy wasn't ours anymore, it belonged to the entire street. A woman who had been calmly holding her shopping bag suddenly raised one like a trophy. A teenage boy pushed through the crowd, his phone trembling in his hands as he tried to record. A little girl on her father's shoulders pumped her fists like she just discovered her new personality. We dragged our bows faster and harder, ripping through the melody with frantic precision. The strings vibrated violently beneath the pressure, threatening to snap, but refusing to give in. The rhythm slammed like a heartbeat that had swallowed a storm. The melody soared like a banshee scream twisting through the air. And the breakdown? It didn't just sound heavy, it felt heavy. You could hear it in your chest. You could feel it in the pavement. You could almost see it in the air, vibrating like heat waves. Then something even crazier happened. People started chanting. Not words, just raw primal sounds. A collective roar of human energy blending with the violent beauty of the music. The girl at the front was leading it, her voice echoing through the open street like a battle cry. Every time we hit a power chord double stop, she jumped. And every time she jumped, 3 or 4 people behind her jumped with her. The entire place was turning into a miniature metal festival, unexpected, unplanned, unstoppable. One man in a suit, who clearly had somewhere important to be, suddenly threw both arms into the air and shouted, "No way they're doing this on violins!" A street vendor abandoned his stall just to get closer. A bus slowed down in the middle of the road, the driver leaning halfway out the window in disbelief. People hanging from the bus handles cheered from inside like they'd been transported to an arena. And the breakdown wasn't even over yet. We pushed harder. Sweat dripped onto the varnish of the violin. My fingers were sliding so fast across the fingerboard that they felt like sparks might fly any second. My partner's bow shredded the air with quick, brutal strokes that looked more like sword strikes than music. The girl screamed another line. "That's my favorite part. Keep going!" Her enthusiasm was infectious, pure, unpolished, beautiful chaos. Even strangers who didn't know metal began nodding their heads. Some cautiously. Some wildly. Some like they had just discovered a hidden part of their soul. Then we shifted, sliding into a rapid-fire staccato riff that sliced through the air like a chain of explosions. People lost it. A guy with headphones ripped them off like he was offended by how good the live sound was. A woman recording almost dropped her phone. A child started stomping in rhythm so aggressively his mother had to hold him still. And through all of it, the girl remained the heart of the storm. Her excitement held the entire crowd together. Her energy fueled the performance. Her reactions pushed us further than we normally dared to go. It was like she had become the conductor, her passion directing every beat, every bow stroke, every decision we made. We weren't just playing for the crowd anymore. We were playing for her. And somehow, that made us better than ourselves. Then it happened. The moment that changed everything. Someone from the back shouted, "No way they're about to do that part!" Which part? The impossible one. The part violinists don't attempt unless they want to snap strings or blow amps. The shredding run. A spiraling, high-speed, death-defying sequence of notes that usually belongs to electric guitars, not fragile wooden violins with centuries-old design. I glanced at my partner. He glanced at me. We knew exactly what the crowd expected. The girl waited, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream, hands in the air like she was about to catch something. The tension rose. The cheering softened. The sound of anticipation flattened into a heavy silence. People weren't just watching now. They were holding their breath. And with one shared nod, A tiny pact between two musicians standing in front of a girl who wanted to feel the ground shake. We launched into the impossible run. The crowd blew up like a bomb. Phones shot into the air. Voices cracked from screaming. The entire street became a wave of movement. And in the middle of it all, the girl jumped so high she almost lost her backpack, shouting with everything inside her. "This is insane!" She wasn't wrong. It was insane. Beautifully insane. Perfectly insane. And as the final notes of the breakdown exploded into the open air, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a performance anymore. This was history being made on a random street, led by the unstoppable energy of one fearless girl. When the final note of the solo faded into the open air, the world didn't immediately snap back into motion. It just hovered. Suspended. Weightless. Silent in a way that felt almost sacred. The only thing moving was the last vibration trembling through the violin strings. A thin thread of sound, stretched to its limit, slowly dissolving into the street like smoke. The girl didn't speak. The crowd didn't cheer. Even the wind seemed to stop mid-breath. For a few heartbeats, it felt like we were all standing inside the echo of something bigger than music. Bigger than us. Bigger than the moment itself. Then the street finally woke back up. Not all at once. In waves. A gasp. A shout. A scream. A roar. The crowd detonated. Louder, wilder, more unrestrained than anything we had ever heard. People didn't just clap, they jumped. They shook their heads in disbelief. They screamed like their voices weren't made for anything less than this moment. A man near the front was yelling, "I've never seen anything like that in my entire life." A teenage girl cried into her friend's shoulder. Someone shouted, "Bro, I got it all on camera." A little kid tugged at his mother's sleeve, saying, "Mama, I want to play violin now, but like that." But through all the noise, all the shock, all the chaos, the girl stood still. Absolutely still. Like the world around her was too loud for her brain to process. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't even blinking. She looked overwhelmed. In the best, purest way possible. We lowered our violins. My hands were shaking from adrenaline. Sweat trickled down my forehead and dripped onto the fingerboard. I felt paint-peeling levels of exhaustion, but also a kind of electricity that ran deeper than anything a crowd had ever given us. We walked toward her. She didn't move. She just stared at us like she was trying to memorize the moment forever. I leaned down a little, catching her gaze. "You okay?" I asked softly. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Did that really just happen?" she whispered. I smiled. "You tell us. You started it." Her eyes softened, and suddenly the seriousness melted away. She blinked rapidly, trying, failing, trying again not to cry. Her voice trembled. "I've never heard it live before. Only on YouTube. And my parents, they don't like metal. They say it's too loud. Too angry. Too pointless." She swallowed. "So I listen in secret. I practice the solos on my fingers when nobody's watching. And I always wish someone would play it in front of me for real. Just once." She wiped her face quickly, embarrassed. "And then you guys actually. She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. We understood. Sometimes music isn't just a sound. Sometimes it's escape. Sometimes it's identity. Sometimes it's the one thing that makes someone feel alive. The crowd around us softened. People stopped shouting. Phones lowered. Even strangers sensed the weight of her words. My partner stepped forward. "This wasn't just for the crowd," he said gently. "This was for you." Her breath hitched, and she covered her mouth with both hands. Then, the energy surged back into the street like a tidal wave. People surrounded her, not to overwhelm her, not to invade her space, but to celebrate her. Teens gave her high fives. Adults nodded at her with respect. Someone shouted, "You picked the perfect song, girl!" Another added, "You're a legend now." For a kid who had probably never been the center of attention before, she handled it beautifully, shy, stunned, glowing. We weren't done with her yet. I stepped back to the center of the performance space and raised my violin again. "Hey," I called out. The crowd quieted immediately. The girl looked up, confused. "You want one more?" I asked. Her eyes widened. "Another metal one?" "No," I said with a grin. "A song for you." Her mouth fell open. The crowd murmured. We started a soft, emotional melody, nothing like the chaos from before. Gentle notes that echoed like a lullaby wrapped in sunlight. A melody built from the same passion and courage she had shown us. We played it just for her. And she knew it. Her hands trembled. Her breathing caught. A tear ran down her cheek, freely this time, without shame. The music rose and fell like a heartbeat, soft but powerful. People swayed. Couples held hands. Even the chaos of the street surrendered to the moment. When the last note faded, the applause didn't explode this time, it bloomed. Warm. Slow. Meaningful. The girl wiped her eyes and whispered, "Thank you so much." We knelt a little so we were eye level. I said quietly, "Don't stop liking what you like. Don't hide it. Metal isn't noise. It's passion in its rawest form." She nodded, still crying a little. My partner handed her a spare violin pick we kept as a joke, in case we ever turned into guitarists. She held it like it was treasure. The crowd gave her space as she stepped back, still shaking, still glowing, still trying to understand what had just happened. As she began to walk away, backpack bouncing softly, she turned one last time. And with the biggest, brightest smile she'd shown all day, she shouted, "You made my dream come true!" The crowd cheered again. We lifted our bows in a final salute. And as she disappeared into the sea of people, leaving behind only her echo and the memory of her fire, we realized something important. We didn't just play a metal song today. We made someone believe in the impossible. And sometimes, that is louder than any metal solo in the world.